The Expanded University, imaginative and boundless. References are brought to you by our personal collection of books, the Cardass Library. If you're new to the Expanded Universe or even Star Wars, new being defined as getting into it sometime within the past 20 years, you might not have realized that Palpatine was not identified as a Sith until the 1990s. Let's go on a journey to find out just when George Lucas revealed the Emperor to be a member of the Ancient Order. First, let's take a look at the first mention of Sith in Star Wars material. The Star Wars novelization was the first publication of Star Wars of any kind, coming out in November of 1976. With Vader's introduction in the early pages of the book, the wording of the passage could be interpreted to mean that there were other Dark Lords existing contemporaneously with Vader. Let's read. 2 meters tall, bipedal, flowing black robes trailing from the figure and a face forever masked by a functional, if bizarre, black metal breath screen. A Dark Lord of the Sith was an awesome, threatening shape as it strode through the corridors of the rebel ship. Fear followed the footsteps of all the Dark Lords. The cloud of evil which clung tight about this particular one was intense enough to cause hardened Imperial troops to back away. An early draft for the first film mentions a Master of the Sith that Vader served. Please note that at this stage, this Master of the Sith was a separate character from the Emperor. It is interesting that Vader is shown to be serving a higher-ranking Sith, courtesy of the Star Wars archives. For an eerie moment, all is deathly quiet as a huge, darker figure appears in the sub-hallway. The remaining stormtroopers bow low toward the doorway. An awesome, 7-foot Black Knight of the Sith makes his way into the blinding light of the cockpit area. This is Lord Darth Vader, right hand to the Master of the Sith. The Empire Strikes Back novelization by Donald F. Glut calls Vader the Dark Lord of the Sith and refers to Palpatine as his master in the same sentence. Later in the same chapter, the master is clarified to be Royal Master, which itself can be interpreted in several ways. In the film itself, it is made clear that the Emperor is Force sensitive with his first utterance. There is a great disturbance in the Force. When we look at the Return of the Jedi novelization by James Caan, he is referred to as the Supreme Dark Ruler. One could make the connection between Dark Lord of the Sith and this title. Still, no explicit reference is made to Palpatine being a Sith. Now, let's take a look at reference books. From A Guide to the Star Wars Universe from 1984. The Sith, a greatly feared group of individuals known as the Dark Lords of the Sith. Darth Vader is one of the most powerful. Darth Vader, the servant and emissary of the Emperor and executor of His Majesty's plans for galactic conquest. Vader was a former Jedi Knight and disciple of Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi. His real name was Anakin Skywalker, father of the young apprentice Jedi known as Luke Skywalker. While under Kenobi's tutelage, Vader was lured to the dark side of the Force and began using his power to further his own ambitions. Sometimes called by the title Dark Lord of the Sith, he was usually addressed as Lord Vader. Over the years, Vader perfected his control over the Force and used it to help the Emperor further his designs. While serving the Emperor, Vader personally saw to the extermination of many Jedi Knights. Still nothing definitive. In the late 80s, West End Games listed the Emperor's template type as Jedi Master. Similarly, Decipher's collectible card game a decade later would list Dark Jedi Master as his Force sensitivity level, although this is a game mechanic rather than a title. The Wizards of the Coast CCG game in the mid-2000s would use Dark Jedi Master and eventually it and Sith Lord. In the Galaxy card series from 1993, artist Jim Valentino speculates the following. And he raises intriguing questions. Is he Luke's grandfather, the first Jedi Knight to fall from grace, like Lucifer? Maybe when George Lucas produces the next trilogy, we'll find out. Also in 1993, the Dark Empire sourcebook was released. The Krath were merged with the Sith led by Exar Kun. The craft had been mentioned in the lore summary in the Dark Empire comics and would later appear the following year in the Tales of the Jedi comics. Still, the text states Palpatine had been studying every dark side tradition he could, so a direct connection couldn't have been made at the time. From the second edition of the Guide to the Star Wars Universe in 1994, how the Emperor achieved his mastery of the dark side of the Force remains a mystery lost in the passage of time. Through his dark will, Darth Vader was created, the Jedi Knights were destroyed, the Old Republic was swept away, the Empire was forged, and the greatest military force ever assembled was unleashed upon the galaxy. He worked upon levels few could comprehend, forming plans within plans, and manipulating his empire the way a master gamesman manipulates the pieces on a holoboard. His grand schemes continued until a new player stepped to the table, Luke Skywalker. What is described here is exactly what we came to learn of the Sith in the prequel trilogy, but the passage and indeed the entire entry on Palpatine leaves the question of the origin of his Force ability open-ended. The following year, the Essential Guide to Characters was released. This flat out states the title of Dark Lord of the Sith had been dormant, thus ruling out Palpatine as a Sith. The thought of the author and editors at the time was likely that the Sith from ancient Star Wars history revealed in Tales of the Jedi died out, and Vader revived the Order. A magazine article from the time discussing Tales of the Jedi, Dark Lords of the Sith, refers to Vader as a ruler of the Sith. In the third and final installment of the Dark Empire saga, Empire's End, Palpatine visits the Valley of the Dark Lords on Korriban, the world of the Sith's origin, and many suggestive mentions are made of the Sith. On one page, the following is stated: Emperor of numberless worlds, Lord Vader's throne still remains empty. Have you now come to take his place and join us? This seems to simultaneously connect Palpatine to the Sith while suggesting he didn't have his own tomb throne as Vader did. In 1997, in another comic series, X-Wing, Rogue Squadron, in the story arc Requiem for a Rogue, a Deveronian technician working for the Empire commandeered a Sith temple after Imperials had departed in the wake of the Emperor's death at Endor. The following was stated about him. Kartarian fancies himself the heir to the Empire, once he builds up a loyal following of susceptibles. This follows along with the prior comic writer's apparent conjecture that Palpatine was connected to the Sith. In addition, it's possible at this time that, during the development of Episode 1, word leaked out that Palpatine was a Sith. In Star Wars Insider number 43, in an article on the characters of Episode 1 shortly before the film's release, the following was written: Since Star Wars first exploded out of the screen in 1977, we have known Darth Vader as the singular embodiment of the mysterious Sith Lords, the powerful warriors who wield the dark side of the Force with brutal precision and unwavering loyalty to the highest of all Sith Lords, the evil Emperor himself. Whether it was this issue or the novelization of Episode 1 by Terry Brooks, it was in April of 1999 that Palpatine was first officially referred to as, and confirmed as, a Sith. The character and story only grew more interesting from there.